Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Swati and today we're going to be talking about how I study for my courses. So I'm what you would call a typical pre-med. I've taken all the pre-med courses like bio, chemistry, physics, math, biochemistry, anatomy, physiology, microbiology, pharmacology, the whole life sciences stream. So essentially I think I can talk about my experience learning and studying for these courses. I'd just like to preface this by saying that everyone's learning styles are different and it's really up to you to kind of trial and error a lot of different methods to find what works for you. This is personally what I do and what I find works best for me, and I'd say that this is just an option that you should consider exploring. So to begin, we have two types of courses. One are memorization-based courses, and these are pharmacology, physiology, anatomy, microbiology, and languages to a certain extent. And then the second type of courses are concept-based courses, such as physics, math, and chemistry. So for all the courses I take, regardless of their type, I type on my laptop during the class, and essentially add extra notes that the teacher might have said that would help my learning, such as, oh, remember this slide, it's testable, or what else was there, or some other derivations. As well, I just use the PDF opener that's automatically available on the Mac, but I know some people use OneNote and that helps them quite a bit. So I'll be honest, I'm a bit of a last-minute studier in terms of I do not review my notes unless there's an exam upcoming. So I'll complete all the assignments and quizzes online, but I only start studying about 2 to 3 weeks before the midterm or final. And depending on the course, for example, chemistry I'm quite good at chemistry, so for me, I can work around 1 week before the exam. I can study for 1 week before the exam, and that works well for me. Whereas something more dense like pharmacology takes me about a month to really memorize everything, because there's just so many drug names and so many mechanisms of action, side effects you have to memorize over a course of 4 months. So essentially, memorization-based courses, I rewrite all my course notes that I took on my laptop. Essentially, I organize them how I think the information should be grouped, so it's easier for me to memorize. This is quite a fast process, doesn't take too long, and it's not neat at all. I don't spend time rewriting it with different colored pencils or pens and highlighting. I just write with a black pen, blue pen, whatever, and just try and get it done. And that takes about 1 to 2 days. Then what I do is I create flashcards of the items I think are very important and I need to memorize, or are not easy to memorize. So I used to make paper flashcards, but I found that takes way too long. Now I use Quizlet, and I'm hoping to use Anki soon. We'll see about that. But I think that the paper flashcards are only useful if, for example, you have to memorize a diagram and you don't have the Quizlet Premium or Plus, whatever it is. Then I would just memorize the diagram by writing it on a paper flashcard. Essentially, I may or may not use the flashcards. It really depends on what type of learning I want to do. So if I feel like I want to just cram the information and dump it on a piece of paper on the exam and then forget about it, then I use the flashcards only, and I will just memorize those. However, if I want to actually understand the material and learn from it and still be able to memorize it, but it takes a bit longer, I would kind of use my flashcards more sparingly. So essentially, the next thing I do, and I find that this really helps, is I compress all the information into a single sheet of paper, and I call this my cheat sheet. Of course, I can't take this into the exam, but it's what I use to just review again and again. So what I do with this cheat sheet is I keep rewriting the whole thing. I make a base one, which has all the information I need to memorize. Like everything in that course is in that cheat sheet, but it's all condensed into one piece of paper. And then essentially what I do is I rewrite that piece of paper over and over and over and over again leading up to the day of the exam, where I keep eliminating information from that paper. And the information that's eliminated is usually already in my head. So I feel like it's already second nature. I don't need to waste paper space for it. Essentially what the paper is just for information that is very necessary and important to memorize, regardless of difficulty. Very difficult concepts that I'm not able to memorize as easily. And lastly, more tiny details that I might not remember. I'd say then what also helped me is the day before the exam, I'll meet up with a friend taking the same course, and essentially we'll go through the entire course on a whiteboard, just writing everything out. So I'd say overall, the best way for me to memorize, and maybe for you as well, is to just reiterate the information in different formats. For me, it was writing, typing, listening to someone speak, and then talking about it myself. So for moving on, for concept-based courses, I still rewrite and organize my notes for my laptop in about 1 to 2 days. And I'll memorize any small details that are needed, like constants or small formulas here and there. But of course, for me, it's not about memorizing a whole course because these are concept-based courses. You're going to have to solve problems with these on the exam. So you can't really just memorize how to solve a problem. Essentially what I do then is I find that practice makes perfect. So I will redo all the quizzes, all the assignments, all the questions in class, all the practice exams, any problem sets, any sort of question-based material I can find, I'll do all of them. And I do them again and again and again until I get them all perfect. And that way I know that I have understood the pattern in which you have to go about solving a question. And so this allows me to essentially recognize patterns, and so when it comes to the test, if I find that there's a certain question that has a similar format to the way I was a question I was practicing, I can just implement that pattern despite there being different numbers or different types of ways the information is presented. I also find that this helps with questions on the test that are multi-step. And essentially what I do then is I just break it down into the individual steps and recognize like which individual step matches which pattern that I've recognized from my practice. Then I apply that pattern and solve the problem. Essentially, the amount of time needed to study really depends on how much material the course has given you. I usually strive to do about 1 to 2 full-length practice tests in a day. So I'd say if there's a problem set consisting of like 15 to 16 questions, I just try to do 1 problem set each day leading up. So if there's 7 problem sets, then I spend maybe 9 days studying for it because I have the 2 days of rewriting my notes. Other small tips, I would suggest not worrying about how pretty your notes are. Like I would not suggest using highlighters or pens or different colored fonts and things like that. I find that just detracts from studying because you're more focused on how do I make this look visually appealing rather than like actually focusing on the material. So aside from that, I don't really have much to say. If you guys have any questions about how I study, I can answer them in the comment section below. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.